Hi, welcome, Katie. I am so glad to finally be connecting with you on here. How are you doing?
Hi, Kara. I'm doing really well. I feel like in some ways we've probably been orbiting each other for quite some time. And this is finally like, hey, finally we get to meet.
I know that's how I feel. Absolutely. So, you are the founder of the Women's Meditation Network, and you have several podcasts under the Meditation for Women topic and under that kind of heading and umbrella. Let's just start by how your work in meditation began.
Yeah. I can pinpoint the exact moment when I was introduced to meditation. I want to say 19 or 20, I think about 19, and I was taking a yoga class at Arizona State University. And it was my very first yoga class, and we did our positions. And at the very end of class, we laid down in Shavasana, and the instructor took us through a 5-minute guided meditation. And I kind of awoke from that meditation going, wow, that was so awesome. Because it was like this moment where I could actually remember, even though I was, just like meditation practice, it wasn't like perfectly still. My mind wasn't perfectly quiet, but like it was this really honest moment of my mind actually being guided to some level of clarity or stillness or quiet. And my body felt really soft yet alive. And so I just woke up going, yeah, that was cool. I want more of that. And over the years, then I just kind of sought out different ways that I could meditate. And, back then that looked like going to the library and probably checking out like CDs that I could get of any guided meditations. And then also, I can also still very vividly remember the very first time I tried to actually meditate on my own in silence, the kind of picturesque version of a meditation. I was in my dorm room and the lights were off. I had candles burning. And I think I want to say I probably even had some music just in the background. And I just sat on my bed in this perfect, like, lotus position, back straight, and it lasted about 12 seconds before I was, like, cursing and like, "This is so uncomfortable. I can't get my mind to stop," and I would try and get back in it, and the entire process probably lasted, 15, 20 minutes before I just gave up and I was done. But basically, it was fulfilling enough. All of these little tastes of it were fulfilling enough for me to continue seeking it out in some way. Fast forward, I moved to Florida when I was 22, and somewhere along the way, I ended up, just being interested enough to find the local Buddhist center. I would go and, attend their whatever meditation series they had going on. I did that for a good year or two, very informally. Like, I never met another person. It was just like I would show up and just listen to whatever was being taught about that topic or meditation. Then we would meditate on it, and it was just this interesting practice. And then, I would and then somewhere along the way, I met a friend who invited me to her home for a weekly meditation a group meditation, and that lasted about a year or two with people I never had met, and sometimes it was 2 of us, sometimes it was 10 of us. And then eventually I discovered my very first sort of digital meditation as we know it now, and that was Meditation Oasis. I can still remember. It was a podcast, and, it was this beautiful woman named Mary who had this just gorgeous butter voice, very relaxing, and that was my first, like, "Oh, I have a phone and I can access a meditation now," and I use them a lot to sleep. I use them when I was feeling frustrated, and basically it just all of these things sort of accumulated to building this muscle and seeing this thing as a tool that I could use in my life in a lot of different ways. And over the years, I've just sort of played with that tool and maneuvered it in different ways and practiced this way of meditating and practice that way of meditating. And that's really been my experience as a consumer or as a practitioner of meditation.
I love that. I love the stick with itness that you had because My journey with meditation before I integrated it as a daily practice was very hit or miss. And you and I have a lot of parallels because you mentioned before we started recording that your birthday is next week. So happy birthday in advance.
Thank you. Thank
But
you.
and you're about to turn the age that I am. And so when you're talking about being in college and taking a yoga class, like I did that, I took a yoga class. I was a business student, but I was like, "Ooh, I'm really curious about yoga." And I remember like the meditation sort of unit or when we talked about meditation, and it was so hard.
Yeah.
And it was so like, it didn't draw me to it at all. I was very curious about it because it was so unusual, but I couldn't stick with it. And then just throughout my adult life, I would get curious about it, but I didn't have the same level of dedication at that time that you did because you kept like kind of
Oh,
finding these different avenues.
yes, but let me make sure to pull the curtains back. I have never been, nor am I even now, a daily meditator. Like I don't have like a practice that looks like, okay, every day I'm going to show up and do it at this time and look like that. Like that's just never been my practice. So, that story is definitely, has happened over years, and perhaps not thinking about it again for another month or 2 and then trying it again, and, "Oh, I found this, and this book sounds interesting, and, oh, that thing mentioned meditation. Maybe I should try this." Like, it feels like it's always been this energy that pulls at me very imperfectly, and I show up very imperfectly, but I'm willing because I'm interested, and I like how it feels, even when it's frustrating, even when my mind is going 1,000 miles a minute, as it still does after all of these years, after all these decades of doing this, and I just like the way it ends up feeling, and it's a cumulative, feeling, meaning it's not like it's like athletics, right? So I'm an athlete, and so it's sort of like you show up, you do your workout. Some days you do the workout and you were not in the mood to do the workout. It was a painful workout to get through. You're just glad it's done. And you feel indifferent afterwards. You're just glad it's done, right? And then some days you're just like flying and it feels so good and you're energized and you're inspired and you feel really good afterwards. But the cumulative effect of working out, you feel in your bones, right? That's the way I feel about meditation. It's like there's some days I show up. There's some days I show up every day in some way of a level of mindfulness of like, what do I need today? Or some consciousness of breathing. Like I'm definitely that very, not planned. But I'm showing up every day, sometimes in a formal meditation, being very frustrated by it, being very distracted, being, letting myself pick up the phone, letting myself do all these things that I'm getting distracted by. And then some days I show up and I am able to sit for 10, 15 minutes and it feels really good. And just like that workout, it's that cumulative effect of feeling very clear and connected to myself. Um, and and very confident that this tool that I have to know myself is very strong. That to me is the power of the meditation.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for that. And I think everybody can relate to that, right? Where it's just like some days it's easy, it feels great. It's like, why don't I do this for the rest of the day? And then some days it's like, oh my God, was that even worth it? And I trust that anytime that I do sit to meditate is building, like you say, that cumulative effect is so powerful. But I often wonder, I mean, I would love to be able to have the insight for like my own chemistry, my own like physiology. Like, okay, so how did I end up in this restless state? Is it what I ate yesterday? Is it the culmination of like how many days in a row I've had coffee? Is it the solar flares that are happening from the sun? Is it, and surely it's a yes, all of this, is coming together for it. But I haven't been very good about like capturing the data to be like, well, yesterday I slept like this and I ate like this and I got in this kind of an argument or whatever. I was worried about this, and then tying that back. But we are fascinating, multifaceted creatures. And it's interesting to think about how all of it plays out when we try to sit and it's so hard.
Yeah, and we all have that. Like those of us who have been, for those who have just started meditating, you have that. For those of us who have been meditating for decades, we still have that. For those of us who have been meditating, 30, 40, even 50 plus years, like they still have that. Like that is the common thing. Your brain's job is to make thoughts and to produce things and ideas. Like that's its job physiologically. We're not going to stop that. Meditation just gives us a way to detach from those thoughts so that we can allow ourselves to see that we are not our thoughts. And in that detachment, we're able to let go of the really big hold that we have on those thoughts so that we can allow them to sort of move away like clouds in the sky. They're there, but they keep on moving, but we don't have to be there with them. We don't have to be one with that cloud. And in that detachment and in that beautiful awareness, a space opens up. And that's that space of stillness that we all really crave. Like that's really what that's like the holy grail of what meditation is, and what you are told to go after in meditation is that sense of stillness, that sense of quiet. And so it's a really interesting dance to not show up with meditation going, okay, my mind's going to get clear, it's going to get
Yeah.
quiet. Like I gotta accomplish that, right? Because meditation is not about accomplishing anything. And then the irony is that like you have to completely let go in order to really feel that and live in that space, and experience that stillness. And sometimes it's for 30 seconds from a 20-minute meditation time that you have, and that's okay, as long as you get to practice experiencing that.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. I mean, that's what's so funny is sometimes when those moments of clarity come and it's really still and it's like, and then the thoughts start coming in about, oh my God, this is awesome. It's so still. Oh my God, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. And then it's like, wait a minute, it's gone.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Now I'm
gone.
just exaggerating.
There's
Yeah,
myself narrating about the stillness right there.
exactly. Yes, it just chased it away really quickly. Well, so you have a lot of woman focus in your work. What makes you drawn specifically to working with women, and what kind of things do you feel like um, you particularly offer that specific group?
Yeah, I feel like I've been a feminist my entire life in some respect. My dad was a feminist. My mom is a very hardcore matriarchal figure. There are five. My parents have six kids, five girls, one boy. It was just a lot of feminine energy. And I was always very proud to be who I was. I didn't have what I think sometimes I hear is a very typical experience of like, I'm a girl, so therefore I was told I couldn't do this. That was not my experience at all. My experience was I am who I am, and that is great, and I get to celebrate everything about me. And so in college, I can remember the moment I took a I think it was a feminist class or women's studies 101 and a gender and communication class all in the same semester. And it completely blew my mind and turned my world upside down because I had never it was the first time I had seen that there are things called girls or women were told that they couldn't do things, or like have been limits in the past for women, and I wasn't aware of those things. And so it just really blew my mind. And I can remember, sort of like the end of that semester and a couple of subsequent semesters of taking some other women's studies classes, of really kind of declaring like, I'm going to do work with women in this world. I don't know how, but I'm going to do work that impacts millions of women, because if I can make a difference in the lives of women, what I know about women is that we make big shifts happen in our lives and to our kids, to our communities. Like we are such, generally speaking, we are such connecting individuals. And so, like I really still do believe, and back then I absolutely believed like I can change the world. If I can make an impact with women, I change the world for the better. So that's really where that fire began. And my entire professional life has in some way tried to express that love and that dedication in some way, in a gazillion different ways. And so, that then got married with the fact that when I initially had this idea of creating the Women's Meditation Network, and that would, it would be all of these different types of meditations for women, or different, it would, all these different podcasts under the network would sort of meet women where they are in these different seasons of life, times of day, types of experiences, whatever that may be. And I started doing the research to see what was out there already. I was blown away that nothing existed. This was 2018. And there was one, if you looked in 2018, if you looked up meditation and women, there was one podcast that existed, and it was for transcendental meditation, which is a very, very specific type of meditation. And I was not that. I'm not trained in transcendental meditation. So I was like, I can't believe this doesn't exist. So that big fire that I have had to do work with women in the world, for women in the world, sort of met with this opportunity of, I can't believe this space exists. I'm going to take up this space. I'm going to be the behemoth in this space. If you look up meditation and women, that's going to be me. Let's go. And I'm very grateful and proud to say that that's what's happened over the past 4.5 years.
That's amazing. Um, well, being that you are a woman, you're a mother, you are, successful and busy and living like a modern life. Can you share with us any of the particular challenges that you've had to overcome with all of that, with that combination of things, and also to be kind of dedicated to your own growth and to your meditation practice?
Yeah. I think struggles that I think all of us really have, which are, uh, having so many things that I love and that I value, and making time for them all in a meaningful way. And my sort of, main dance that I do is between sort of my kids slash personal life, or what I'll call mommying. So, like, mommying and business, and these two worlds that both are incredibly significant for me. They both are parts of, who I am in this world, that I really value, and I want to put a lot of time and energy into them. And they both require a lot, a
Yeah.
lot. I have two littles. I have a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old right now. So, like, and when I was pregnant with my second is when I launched the Women's Meditation Network. So it's been, she's been raised with this. I have raised this business alongside these two girls, really. And so, this is not I don't know if there's any easy season of motherhood, but this is definitely not one of them, if that does exist. Um, so, so the struggles for me have been mostly having to rewrite the mindset that will allow me to do what I want to really do in this world, to live into the light that I really feel like I'm here to bring in all of these ways, because it's not one or the other for me. Like, I love my girls, and if I were to be a full-time mom and not allow myself the mode of self-expression through my business, that would feel very limiting. I would feel a little less than in my ability to be me. And the opposite is true as well. If I were, just working this business and barely seeing my kids, I would absolutely feel a lack there. So for me, it's really having to be very honest with myself, taking constant inventory of who I am, what my values are at any given moment, and sort of taking stock on how those two things are dancing with each other. And in this particular week, do the kids need to stay at school a little longer because I really do need to do some more work, and this week that needs to be okay. And next week, oh, can I pick up the kids right after school ends, and do less work because I want to have more quality time with them. And even in saying that, there's sort of this underlying, what I'm going to call a limiting belief, called I can't have both. I can't have my business cannot be in massive growth mode, doing amazing things in this world and, impacting millions of women while I'm also being a very present, very active, very intentional mom. Like that is a very widely held belief by many, many people out there. And it's sort of out there in the ether. And that was one limiting belief that I was very aware of that I would have to constantly rewrite. And so and in doing that, it's interesting because in doing that, there's some realities to it. Like I am freaking exhausted trying to do all of these things, right? I have brought myself to burnout more times than I care to admit this year in particular. Um, and I refuse to believe in that belief. I have to find a way where I can do both, and I will continue to practice how to do that better and better every single time. So though that really has been the biggest, most all-encompassing challenge that I've had is wanting to do this really great work and wanting like it's painful for me to stop working because I'm like, oh, I gotta go pick up the kids, right? And um and I want to be with my kids and I want that time with my kids. And so I refuse to work 80 hours a week, 100 hours a week. Like those days don't exist for me anymore. Pre-kids, sure thing. But like now, no, like even 40 hours a week feels like way too much. So, it is that dance is a constant, conscious, daily taking inventory, making decisions based on my values and dealing with the consequences of those decisions as well.
Yeah, thank you for sharing all of that. It's so relatable because I feel just the same. My kids are older; they're 15 and 12. But it seems like yesterday they were 7 and 3, um, or 7 and 4. Was it 7 and 4? Um, that's one of the places where I think meditation helps so much because it's like through meditating, we're practicing our focus, right? So we're like learning how to continue to bring our awareness back. And that to me is I'm realizing more and more, even at this stage in my journey, like how important that is outside of meditation, because I can get so distracted in what I'm doing, and I may have like 4 or 5 huge like chunks of important things, which is like family is one, and the podcast is one, and then my business is one, and so on, and different things that require my focus. And it can be very easy for me to butterfly from one to the other and then stop what I'm doing and go and butterfly at the next thing. And okay, let me stop that because I just remembered that I have to do this thing and I can just do it really quickly and just get that off my list. But then I'm like constantly dividing and diffusing my energy. And so that ability, which is a skill that I'm still honing. And it's so funny because it's so linked to meditation, but I haven't been living my life that way. And I'm like, oh, practical application to focus, and it's like when I'm focusing on the podcast, just do the podcast and just edit the whole episode like in one go and stop stopping and answering, the email that just came in, or all the different ways that I get myself out of that flow. But it's such a, it's so relatable because I think we all have multiple things that we want to focus on, multiple things that are important to us, and equally important, and um, so it's just it's inspiring to see, how you're dealing with that.
It's real too. I mean, I don't do this perfectly, but I have had to come up with, you know, efficiency hacks, energy hacks, like ways to be able to streamline energy. People talk so much about time management, which I kind of half-heartedly believe in. For me, it's more of energy management. How am I managing my energy at any given moment? And for me, that has to show up on my calendar. Like, okay, if I know that this time block is for, even on the basic, if this time block is for work, then I'm working. And if this time block is for kids and home, I'm not working. I don't like, and I am notorious for not, if anyone on my team or anyone needs to get a hold of me during kid times, or when I'm mommying, you're not hearing from me until after the kids go to bed, and maybe not even then because I'm exhausted by that point. So it's like, I don't turn my business brain back on until whatever time, and then you'll hear from me. So and if you want to even go deeper into even those time blocks, it's like, okay, for example, there are two types of kind of work energy that I have. One is writing or creation, like writing these scripts, and that takes a very unique energy. And then there's sort of administrative energy, right? Of like doing the things. And then there's more like business growth strategy, CEO level growing type of things. And so I'm even very cognizant, and I'm not so perfectionistic to need this on my calendar, but like if I know I need writing, I can't do those other things. And they're so sexy to do. They're a lot more fulfilling because I can check those things off my list pretty easily. But the writing is like, it's the most painful thing that I do in my business, and yet it's the most fulfilling because I can come out of it afterwards and be so proud of that poem that I just wrote, that I'm now going to create into a meditation and deliver to your ears so that you can really be, touched, and it can really hit your heart. Like that's amazing. But like, there's time that needs to be dedicated to that, and that time, it um needs to really be honored and cared for, so that I'm not letting all of this other administrative or, check things off the list energy come in. And over the years, I've learned to marry that with time. So like, there's no way I'm going to have writing time on Mondays. That just doesn't work. On Mondays, I'm raring to go. I'm like, boom, boom, boom. I'm like like most of us on Mondays are just like, boom, let's go. Let's get the week started. Right. So that's not writing time for me. I want to check things off a list. I want to go, go, go. And then by Tuesday or Wednesday, I'll be more into like a writing space. So my brain will need a break from the administrative stuff. So like, that's energy management. And if you can be aware of that, and the way it comes down to meditation is that I am knowing myself. I am being hyper aware of who I am in any given moment, so that I could see how I can align energies with tasks so that I can get the most out of any given day. Same with my kids. Like, they're sort of the opposite actually needs to happen. There are some days where there's sort of things for us to do together, and it's more of like, we're going here, we're doing this, we're doing these things together. And then there are days where it's just like, I just want us home to have unstructured time, and that needs to be it. And I have to turn off the brain that wants to do and complete things and accomplish. And so even that is knowing even the days of the week. Okay, like by the end of the week, I absolutely don't want to go and run around town with the kids. Like, I want to be at home, I want to chill. Maybe we'll even have a girls movie night, if daddy's away. Like, so like, all of that is just this incredible awareness of self that I have, that is very practical in its application for how I want to maximize who I can, like, what I can create in this world and who I can be in this world. Like, that's very practical to me, but it's incredibly powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love how you talk about, because earlier you were talking about the seasons for the life and the seasons for a woman's life. And I love how in tune you are with not only the energy that's required for each task, but the type of energy that you hold at different times. So, that is so introspective, and it's so practical. It's very introspective, but it's like, man, how much more productive can you be, or how much more efficient can you be, meeting just like, not that, like, to your point about, I don't need to work 80-hour days, like that's not going to do, or 80-hour weeks, that's not going to do it. Certainly not 80-hour days for sure.
It's going to be a little much.
Right. But the way that it's working like more efficiently and more with the season that you're in, or the strength of, am I in a creative flow? Like, not just am I in a flow, but am I in a creative flow, or am I in a task managing flow, or am I tired and I need to just do something that's like more rote and mundane, and I don't need to like put creativity into it, or um, it's working smarter, and not just working, but also with, applying that to every facet of your life is so important. I love
Mhm.
it. That's great. So you talked about how you're an athlete and that you don't always rely on meditation to kind of connect you with yourself. So can you talk a little bit, just expand upon that a little bit more in terms of ways that you sort of get into a meditative state without actually sitting down to meditate?
Yeah, great question. So it's probably worth noting that if you were to ask me how I define meditation, I would define it as a pause, for the purpose of sort of that detachment from thought that we talked about before, right? But it's a moment of pausing. And so if you can see that broad of a definition, then all of a sudden a lot of different things that perhaps you're doing in your life, you can see now as like, oh, that's a meditation. Oh, that's a meditation, or that's very meditative for me. For me, probably the number one that is, apart from actually sitting down doing a guided meditation or sitting down and being quiet for X amount of time, is being out in nature. Most often moving in nature. So my husband and I go on walks every single weekend. Every single weekend, my kids have a sleepover at their grandma and grandpa's, and so we get this downtime of about 24 hours to just actually like breathe, look at each other, reconnect. It's really beautiful. And I'm not alone. I'm with him and we are walking in nature. Sometimes we're super quiet the whole time. And sometimes most of the time, we're yapping on about the life that we dream of and, what's going on in our lives or challenges that we're having and all these beautiful, deep and profound conversations. That is a very meditative experience for me. It's very cathartic. The being in nature for me, whether I'm with him or alone, has this incredibly beautiful effect of allowing me to remember that I'm simultaneously the only person just like me in the entire universe. There's no one else. Like, there's no other me. I am so special. And I'm this teeny tiny little speck in this massive, totally like beyond comprehension universe. And that reminder is incredibly humbling and always puts into perspective whatever big drama or trouble, or issues or challenges I'm having at the time. It always puts that in perspective in the sense that it reminds me like, okay, what's really important, Katie? Like, okay, so let's say worst case scenario happens. Really? Is it okay? Are you really going to be okay? You're going to be okay. Like, is the world coming to an end? No, you're okay. You're going to be okay. You've got people who love you. Everything's fine. So being in nature for me is massively important. And again, that could be a walking meditation, being in nature, sitting in nature and just watching the birds, listening for all the sounds, like seeing and observing life that you don't normally see because you're moving too fast. So that to me is very incredible. And then I also work out just about every day, and I work out outside. And so that in and of itself sort of hits that in the fact that, like when I'm, down on the floor doing whatever, push-ups or, crunches or whatever, I'm looking up at the sky, I'm watching the clouds go by, I'm listening for the cardinal, I'm trying to find the cardinal that I'm hearing. So that's big. The being, and then, the being in your body. I've heard a lot of athletes talk about when they're working out, it is this very spiritual experience of being in your body and being so in the moment. And I think that's what all of these practices can do that are not your typical sit and meditate in the lotus position. Doing dishes, doing, gardening, like these very mundane activities. The power of them is that they allow you to they allow your mind to clear because you're so focused on just this one thing that you're doing in any given moment so that your mind can't think about anything else. And it's incredibly calming. I wish dishes were on the list for me, but I hate doing dishes. But like I've gardened before and Just all these sorts of things. So if there's any sort of mundane activity that you have, I would consider that a form of meditation, in the fact that you get a chance to pause from the normal spinning, things moving in your mind all the time. And that pause is refreshing and it feels really good. So there's a gazillion other ways that you can practice meditation outside of what that typically might look like.
Yes, yes, I love that. I mean, and you're so right. If there is that mundane kind of task, it's the practice also of just being like, okay, let me re-engage with it, because we can find it so easy to kind of do it in the background and be like, well, I'm going to solve this other problem while I'm washing the dishes, for example. But it's like, okay, practice, let's like practice. What
Yeah.
is it like to be with the dishes in this moment? And that can be like hard. Yeah.
Very. And I think really what it is this coming to deep presence with what is. And for me, that's what the pause then leads to. So, I call these I call these little mini moments of mindfulness. So if you're in the shower, instead of thinking about the 8,000 things you need to do, you can instead sort of zone that out and just really concentrate on, the beads of water hitting your back, feeling the water sort of trickle down, feeling the warmth and temperature of the water. And that sort of quickly graduates to a sense of gratitude for that. Like, not everyone gets a warm shower every day. And wow, how amazing this is. Like, wow, I'm so grateful for my house. I'm so grateful for this water, cleaning me right now. Taking, excuse me, taking a couple of minutes before, my goodness, excuse me. Okay, sorry.
It's okay.
Um, instead of, getting out of the car as soon as you pull up to your house, taking a couple of moments just to sit in your car and take 5 conscious breaths, like counting all the way to 5 for every single breath, you're counting 1 count, and just becoming aware of that breath, not because you want to accomplish anything, but because you're giving your mind an opportunity to really focus in on something so that you can then come into full presence with it. And I think that's really, the desire of meditation, is that you can come into full presence with what is. Therefore, you're not thinking about the future, you're not thinking about the past, you're fully present, you're fully in the moment. And that's where that stillness, that's really where that space then arises.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you. So, Katie, can you tell people how they can find you and how they can find your help?
Yeah. So if you go to womensmeditationnetwork.com, you can see all of our shows there, or you can go search in the podcast player that you're listening to now. Just type in meditation for women. All of the podcasts that I have that in the title, whether it's sleep meditation for women, morning meditation for women, daily affirmations. So there's a ton of them there for you to grab and, listen to all for free. And you can, just kind of move your way through the giant library of meditations and sounds that are available for you.
Wonderful. Well, this was so much fun. I'm so happy to have connected with you, and thank you for your contribution. You were the very first Meditation Mondays in the series. So, and it was a beautiful meditation on gratitude.
Yeah.
But I'm so happy to be connected with you, and I'm going to meet you in person at the end of January. So I'm
Yay.
very excited for that.
Me too.
So thank you so much, Katie.
Kara, thank you so much. This was so much fun.